This is Horror Sucks, the podcast where we watch horror movies and tell you if they suck.
Usually they do. I'm Carter Rhodes, and I am sweaty as hell. We just finished a corn maze. And it's like 1,000,000 degrees out, even though it's October.
I'm Ashley Atkins, and today I became one with the corn.
Yeah.
So this week we're going to tell you why Halloween Ends sucks. Before we do that, for those of you who are new here, how this works is that we'll give you a summary of the plot with spoilers, and then we will give some fun facts, go into the good, the bad, and the spooky, our overall impressions, and our rating.
Mm-hmm.
So before we get into the plot of Halloween Ends, Carter, would you mind giving us a little synop of the original Halloween movie for maybe those who have been living under a rock and haven't seen it?
Well, to be fair, this movie came out in 1979,
yes,
78, so like...
It's a classic.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter. I'm not getting into that. What? You have no excuse because you...
I've seen it.
Okay, good.
I saw it in high school.
What's the one you didn't see then? Alien?
No, I've seen it.
It Follows. You haven't seen It Follows.
I haven't seen It Follows.
Okay. So
it's
anyway,
on my list.
Just a quick recap of the history of the franchise. Halloween came out, and it was so popular that they made, I don't know, like 5 sequels or something like that. And they all sucked. And then, after, God, how many? 5, 6, 7. There were 10 remakes and sequels, including the Rob Zombie Atrocities. So, in 2018, they made they announced they were going to make a trilogy that was going to entirely disregard all previous entries except for the first one, which was good because they all sucked. They were so bad that they actually ruined
the entire series.
They ruined how good the first movie was by retroactively explaining. It was bad. Here's how the first movie went. I'm honestly not going to summarize the previous movies in the remake trilogy because they just weren't good in any way.
We can set it up, but that's it.
I've ranted about it before, probably not on this podcast. So the movie follows Laurie Strode, who's a babysitter, on Halloween. There's this guy named Michael Myers who, when he was a kid, murdered his sister on Halloween. Like, as a 8-year-old, killed her. And he's been in this mental asylum ever since. And just a couple days before Halloween, he broke out. So he sees Laurie Strode drop off a key to the Myers house because her dad's a real estate agent, and just kind of follows her. And that's kind of the story of the movie, is he kind of follows her around and kills the people he runs into. But at its core, what makes it spooky is that Laurie was just there. And there was no deeper explanation for it. Later, they tried to explain it, which was stupid. It was scary because he just decided he wanted to kill Laurie. There was absolutely nothing she could have done to make him not want to kill her. She was just unlucky enough to be in his path. So then the remakes are garbage. And Ashley, why don't you tell us about how this movie... Well, I should actually give...
We can give a setup to how this movie starts, because in the first 2 of this trilogy, basically they frame that Michael Myers is coming back to hunt down Laurie and is running a mess through this town. And
Laurie spent the past, 30 years kind of just...
in hiding.
Yeah.
And she has a daughter and a granddaughter. And the important thing is that the daughter dies. And so then Laurie...
Judy Greer.
Yeah, Judy Greer, who is a phenomenal actress. They're really uneventful. I think those films have some good kills, but...
They're deeply bad, though.
They are awful, as is this film.
There's one scene in which a kid, he asks his babysitter to check the closet, and she's like, see, there's nothing there. And she goes to open it, and the door doesn't open all the way. And Michael Myers steps out and starts killing her. And the kid goes, with about this cadence, oh, shit! And runs away.
Yeah.
It was just really, really bad couple of movies.
No, they're bad. They're awful.
Written by people, not even who have never seen Teens, who just seem to have a tenuous grasp on what a human is every single person seemed like the writer's best idea of what a normal person is like.
The dialogue was awful, and the direction for how they were supposed to act, great case for overacting of what not to do. It really...
There's one scene in which a character goes to his girlfriend who's babysitting, and he goes, "Hey, look at this. I just got this today." And he shows her something on his arm, presumably a tattoo. And she seems to really enjoy that. And she kisses him and says, and I quote, "Somebody's totally getting dry fucked tonight." I had to look it up because that was a series of words I didn't care for and assumed I misheard. I didn't. And then later in the movie, after the guy is killed, you see what the tattoo is. It's just the day's date. We had no reason to believe that there's anything. At that point, he had no idea that that day would be special in any way. So it was just awful.
So we now open with Halloween Ends 1 year after. So at the end of Halloween Kills, Michael Myers kind of disappears.
Is it only 1 year? I got the sense that a couple of years had passed.
So no, when the kid dies, it's 1 year.
Yes, you're right. My bad.
So a new character, Corey, he shows up to a house to babysit. He's worked with them previously, but this kid that he's babysitting for that night is a menace. He plays a prank on Corey and eventually locks him in the attic. And right as the parents get home, parents walk in, they hear Corey banging on the door going, "I'm gonna kill you!" And then as he pushes open the door, it knocks the kid over the railing and he flies down 3 flights of stairs to crash onto the floor, and sadly he died.
Not only that, like, it hit him with a good thunk, so the kid got popped and then fell. It wasn't just a push. Kid smacked his head on the door too.
Well, you know what? He was a piece of work, okay?
And thus deserved to die.
Not to die, but...
Anyway.
Anyways, so then we flash forward to the present. It's been a few years. I want to say it's like present. They didn't give a date, I think, but I think it's supposed to be like 2022.
Yeah, it's 3 years later, they say. The court case has resolved itself. Presumably he was acquitted because Corey's free.
Yeah, he was acquitted. They realized it was indeed an accident. But he lives his life in kind of fear. He's so worried that people don't believe that he was innocent. And it's a big kind of strain on his life. And he's outside of a gas station one day. I forget why, but there's these dumb...
To buy milk.
Oh, okay. There were these dumb high schoolers there. You're right. You buy chocolate milk.
Yes, to
glass
buy
bottle of
a glass of chocolate milk. Not milk for like cooking. He bought a milk drink to drink then and there.
Power to you, man. So these dumb high schoolers who are in band drive up in a convertible and they're like, "Oh, you're that baby killer," or whatever, and they start bullying him like really aggressively. And at one point he drops
pushing him around.
Yeah, he drops the milk and then they push him to the ground, and of course he hurts himself. He gets glass in his hand, and Laurie shows up and was like, "Get out of here, you punks." And so she takes him to the clinic where her granddaughter Allison works. Did she do this on purpose? Yes, she is a grandmother. She's trying to set them up. So
I also should mention that Allison's mother died, and now Allison and Laurie
they live together. Yeah. So Allison and Corey kind of hit it off. They exchange numbers. Allison is very much actively pursuing him, and he's like, no. But they finally figure it out. They go to this party, and he leaves early. And as he's walking home, distraught, these stupid high schoolers show up again.
Because they slashed their tires.
Yeah. Laurie was like, "Oh, while they're in the store, let's slash their tires and then run off." It was stupid.
Giggling while they did.
Yeah. The kids knew it was them. So they show up and they're like, ready for round 2. And he's like, just kind of, I think he was kind of fighting back a little bit more than he was the previous time. But they end up pushing him over the bridge. They're on a bridge. They push him down and he falls to the ground. And then you just see someone pulling his not lifeless, because he is alive, but just like...
limp.
Yes, thank you. Limp body into a sewer grate. And you know who it is. We all do.
Michael Myers just kind of lives in the sewers for some reason.
I don't know. So he wakes up, realizes where he is, and like tries to leave. But then Michael Myers grabs him and starts choking him, which why wouldn't he just kill him before him? But whatever. And as they look into each other's eyes, there's this weird flash sequence where presumably some of Michael Myers' powers, in air quotes, because I don't think that's how it's framed, particularly, transfers to Corey.
I interpret it as he saw into Corey that he was another, like, killer and was like, you're cool, bro. I'll let you live.
That's kind of what it was like, but he clearly changed at that point. Like, there's something in Corey's demeanor changed. But yes, I think part of that was because he is a killer. Killed someone even though it wasn't on purpose. So then, this gives Corey a lot of confidence. His relationship with Allison gets better, but he also starts to kill people.
Yep.
And go on a little killing spree. And he ends up kind of teaming up with Michael Myers, and they hurt a bunch of people.
They kill, like, people who wronged them, but also mildly wronged them, like...
So one of them was, like, Allison's ex-boyfriend who
didn't,
like,
do anything.
He gave them a hard time at the diner. And
left them alone when he snapped. Like,
yeah. It just...
He was rude. That was it. Like...
And
like,
then,
he, while drunk, didn't pick up on the signal that she wanted him to not talk to them right now. And then when someone yelled at him, he's like, oh, okay, sorry. And he walked back.
Yeah. I mean, he was being obnoxious.
He did follow Corey, I guess, but...
Yeah, even still, it just... I don't think it was really warranting a killing if it's going to be a revenge plot. But the other people they kill, not even important. So Laurie figures out that something is wrong with Corey. And Corey is trying to convince Allison to leave. And she's like, no, I need to stay here for my grandma. Like, I love her. Also, I'm the only reason she's keeping it together. So he's like, he tries to like kind of, Laurie confronts Corey. I don't like this. Laurie and Corey.
I really do hate it. I can't believe they didn't think of that.
I don't know. So she confronts him and he's like, if I can't have her, no one can. And she's like, you better watch it. You got to stop seeing her. So, of course, Corey tells Allison that. And she's like, I'm out of here. We're going. And then Corey is still on his killing spree. And he confronts Laurie and is going to kill her.
Oh, yeah.
And she fakes a suicide call because she knows he's there. And then shoots a pumpkin.
To get that realistic splatter, yeah.
I'm going to save my opinion on it. So then her and Corey get into a confrontation. She ends up killing him. And then, but of course...
Well, no, she like, not even mortally wounds him, just hurts him. Like, if he went to the hospital, he'd survive.
Didn't she shoot him?
No, Allison comes in.
Yeah.
And he's like, if I can't have her, nobody can. And he stabs himself
to
make it look like Laurie killed him. That lasts for like 30 seconds. That was such a useless scene.
I kind of wish there was more tension brought into that because it could have been good. I completely forgot it.
I don't think it could have been good, actually. I think it was doomed to be bad.
Well, anyways, you're right. He did stab himself in the neck to make it look like she killed him. Mm-hmm. So
also about this time, he had stolen Michael Myers' mask.
Yeah, so that's right.
That also doesn't turn into anything.
It makes no sense, but we're gonna get into it. So then Michael Myers shows up, presumably to get his mask back, also because he and Corey killed together. And while he's there, he goes to attack Laurie, but she's ready. She ends up pinning him to her woodtop island by stabbing him through the hands into the wood and just like...
And then pinning his legs with a fridge, so he's just kind of there. At a certain point, she's just stabbing an old man.
She starts to stab him, and then he gets his hand free and starts to choke her. But then they look into each other's eyes and the same thing kind of happens with what's his face. But then Allison walks in and Laurie's able to get free, and they slice his throat, they slice his wrists, they break his arm. Homeboy is dead.
Yeah, he's pretty dead.
So then they strap him to the roof of their car and drive him to the car dump mechanic place, used car, I don't know, the lot.
Yeah.
And they toss his body into the car crusher that just like goes in on it. So, and that's it. They resume their normal lives.
Yep.
The end. Time to wake up if you fell asleep like I did.
Yeah. So a lot of these facts I'm about to give you are actually facts about the original Halloween because that movie is fucking fascinating. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. This movie is not great. So the original Halloween was released in 1978, directed and scored by John Carpenter. That's not something you see very often, directed and scored. Carpenter has also directed The Thing, Escape from New York, Escape from LA, which it turns out is a sequel to Escape from New York. I didn't know that. They Live and Christine. Someone called Jordan Peele like the best horror movie director ever. And he's like, what have you never heard of John Carpenter? That's not even him being humble. Is John Carpenter, unironically, has just churned out a couple absolutely iconic movies.
I know, and
he has 2 of my top 5 horror movies directed.
Which ones?
The Thing and Halloween.
Halloween is not in your top 5.
Well, it is now.
Okay.
It is to prove my point.
Fair. Okay, so the thing about John Carpenter is like he is this good, like kind of without trying.
He does a lot of like independent stuff. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
How it's pretty impressive how
ironically
looks
though,
how little. It looks like he doesn't put a lot of work into it and just churns out some great movies.
2 of those movies I haven't seen all the way through.
Bro.
I haven't seen all the way through for The Thing or Christine.
I haven't even started Christine.
I started it, but then I went to bed.
So the movie stars Jamie Lee Curtis in her film debut.
Oh, I didn't realize that was her debut.
Her film debut. She was in television.
Got it.
She was actually, of her and her high school friends, she was the only girl still in high school.
Huh.
Everyone else was an adult. So the original film was selected for preservation in the U.S. National Film Registry by the Library of Congress. As it should be. It deserves to be.
Yeah, for sure.
In one scene in Halloween, a couple of characters are watching a movie called The Thing from Another World, which is a 1950s movie, which was eventually remade to become The Thing.
Oh.
And this was several years before John Carpenter directed it. I don't know if he had plans for it.
I think can I give a
Well, I mean, the
guess?
book that it was based off of hadn't even come out yet at this point.
Oh.
So it isn't even like he had his eye on it.
Oh, my guess might have been though that he'd seen the movie and liked it.
Probably, yeah. And then probably was just the first choice to direct it.
When he saw the book that it's based on, was like, oh, remember that movie we watched?
So the town of Haddonfield, Illinois, was based on the town of Haddonfield, New Jersey, which is where the writer Deborah Hill grew up. I've been to Haddonfield, New Jersey, and it's just a nice suburb. Like, you can see why it inspired Halloween, but like, if I was just there, I wouldn't look around and be like, oh my god, this is just like Halloween. It's a bunch of nice big houses. Pretty spooky. Fun fact, Deborah Hill was actually the then girlfriend of John Carpenter.
Oh.
She's the writer, or co-writer. She worked with John Carpenter, I believe.
Interesting.
So Hill describes the idea of Michael Myers as the idea was that you couldn't kill evil, and that was how we came about the story. We went back to the old idea of Sam Hain, that Halloween was the night where all the souls were let out to wreak havoc on the living, and then come up with the story about the most evil kid who ever lived. And when John came up with this fable of a town with a dark secret of someone who once lived there, and now that evil has come back, that's what made Halloween work. I really like that inspiration of just Michael Myers being this soul let loose to cause harm on Halloween.
Yeah, I think you just got to clarify that Sam Hain is the Wiccan word for Halloween. I think it's pagan.
Yes,
it's the pagan day.
I think it dates back to the Celtics.
You're right,
but yes, it's essentially the precursor to Halloween. They would carve gourds with faces so that the spirits would obsess over them, confusing them with people, which is how we get jack-o'-lanterns.
They would do gourds and turnips. Turnips were the OG.
Yeah.
I did a full paper on this in high school.
Because pumpkins were a New World thing, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah.
Anyway, Laurie Strode is supposedly the name of one of Carpenter's old girlfriends.
Must have had a bad breakup.
Michael Myers, well, she survived. Must have been a great breakup.
Yeah, but she also said to kill her after her.
That's true. So Michael Myers' supposed death at the end of the original, where he was shot a couple times, was meant to be ambiguous, and it was meant to terrify the audiences. Because he went through so much trouble to portray him as just a regular man, all of a sudden we weren't sure what he was capable of. The fact that he was able to just disappear on Halloween instead of dying continues to lend... What's the word I'm looking for?
It's part of the lore.
It continues off the lore of him being kind of like this soul let loose on Sam Hain. So Carpenter has described Halloween as true crass exploitation. I decided to make a film I would love to have seen as a kid, full of cheap tricks like a haunted house at a fair where you walk down the corridor and things jump out at you. And in his attempt to make just a cheap movie, he created one of the best slasher movies of all time. And I'm only saying one of, because I don't want to get into an argument about it, is I truly believe it is the best. Carpenter...
I love how you say one of, and then you're like, well, it is the best, though.
Yeah. So Carpenter worked with Jamie Lee Curtis to create what they called a fear meter, because since the film was shot out of sequence, she wasn't sure how scared she should be going into certain scenes. So he'd tell her, this one's about a 7, this one's a 6, and the scene we're going to shoot tonight is a 9.5. And she would have different levels, different facial expressions and scream volumes for each level on the meter. Meanwhile, for Castle, who was, I believe, Nick Castle, he played Michael Myers. He gave him absolutely nothing to work with, intentionally. So Castle asked what Myers' motivation for a particular scene was, and Carpenter said, "Your motivation is to walk from one set marker to another and do not act under any circumstances." And so Carpenter said that the only direction he ever gave Castle was when Myers was looking at a corpse. Carpenter told him to tilt his head and just kind of look at him like you're taking in a butterfly collection, just cold and detached. Fascinating. And it continued to build off of why I think Michael Myers is the scariest character, is because he's not angry.
He's so just deadpan.
He wants to kill Laurie, and like, she didn't do anything to piss him off. And that's why I enjoyed after, in the remake, as soon as Michael Myers got free, he immediately went for Laurie, is because he wanted to kill her, and just because he got sent to jail didn't mean he didn't want to stop killing her. It wasn't her fault. It's just, he still wants to from before. I very much enjoyed that. So, since they had a low budget, all the characters had to wear their own clothing. One of the only props they had was the iconic Halloween mask, which is made from a Captain Kirk mask. They widened the eye holes and painted it a bluish white. And the idea was to make it humorless, faceless, and this kind of pale shape that almost looks human but isn't.
It's iconic.
Absolutely. John Carpenter says that Jamie Lee Curtis is the ultimate homage to Alfred Hitchcock because her mother played Marion Crane in Psycho.
Yup.
Yeah, and in fact, they both acted together in, I think it was Halloween in 2008.
Yes, I think so.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting. So, PJ Soles, who played Michael Myers' older sister in the beginning of the movie, in the beginning there's a topless scene right before Michael kills her, and so she went to see the movie with her boyfriend at the time, Dennis Quaid, father of Jack Quaid. So they went to see it together, and during her nude scene, she has a line of like, "See anything you like," to her boyfriend in the movie, and an audience member goes, "Hell yeah, I do!" And Dennis Quaid was like, "Do you want me to beat him up?" And she enjoyed it too much to say no. She thought it was funny.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. And so
You do realize that if we watch this movie, we have to say the line.
Yeah. So Halloween Ends is the third and final of the remake trilogy. That trilogy disregards all the previous movies. All three were directed by David Gordon Green, who, aside from these movies, directed The Pineapple Express. Yeah, he does not have a history of horror. I don't understand why they picked him.
So why did they...
I don't know.
Because he's probably a EP.
Probably. So, in the beginning scene of Halloween Ends, Corey is watching The Thing, which is an homage to an homage, which is nice. I enjoyed that.
Is that what he's watching with the kid?
Yeah.
Ah.
So...
that makes sense why I didn't recognize it.
Mm-hmm. So in October of 2011, the director, David Gordon Green, said that Halloween Ends will take place 4 years after the events of Halloween Kills. That part's true. It would incorporate elements of the pandemic into the story. That part's not true. Yeah. Literally no mention of it whatsoever.
Which honestly, I'm glad.
I don't care.
I think that was a good
he's
choice.
wrong for saying it would.
It was a good choice not to. They probably had a single scene that they then cut out.
Yeah. So Jamie Lee Curtis said that the film would be shocking, which isn't that true, and will make people angry, which is true.
Not for the reasons that she thinks.
A CAD, who I don't know who that is, stated that Halloween Ends will be more contained than Kills, while Green called it an intimate coming-of-age story, much like Carpenter's Christine. All of these things are not just wrong, they're mutually exclusive.
They don't go together.
Yeah.
What?
They're not true, also. The movie they describe...
I can't get over the fact that he was like, it's going to be a coming-of-age story. In what world?
I don't know. So... Nick Castle has, for the first time in the trilogy, has a non-Michael Myers cameo. He is a party goer at the party with Corey and Allison, and he's going as a flasher. He rips open his coat, and he has a bunch of fake, organs on him, and he says, "See anything you like?" And then Dennis Quaid comes in and kicks the shit out of him.
That's so freaking clever. I didn't know that. I'm so glad I do now.
I did like that. So this is the only film in the series that features another killer besides Michael. When asked if this was the final film in the series, Jason Blum said there will be more films because Malik Akkad, he's the guy I mentioned earlier, has a clause prohibiting Michael Myers to be killed. However, any future films will follow a separate continuity. This is going to blow. There's a body count of 18.
I'm sorry. I need to grasp around the facts. So basically, if they do another Halloween movie, it will disregard these 3 movies. What is the point?
It's just bad. So, ignoring the fact that Halloween Resurrection, which retconned the previous movies, this is the second Halloween film in which Laurie Strode successfully kills Michael Myers. She killed him in Halloween H2O 20 years later.
That's quite the name, and I feel like we need to watch it. I'm just saying. Okay,
so,
are we ready for...
the good? Dun, dun, dun.
All right. How long is your good? Not very long.
I have about 6 items.
Okay, I've got exactly 6 items. So.
Perfect. Why don't you go first?
All right, perfect. So I thought the cinematography, for the most part, was pretty good. I really had to grasp the straws to find anything to say here.
I honestly didn't like it. Not enough to raise an issue with it in the bad, but it was a lot of...
Some of the close-ups were really bad, and there was some poor framing at times, but for the most part, I thought there was some well-shot scenes.
You know how I described it? And I quote, I wrote down competent production value. That's
really what I'm going for.
That's how much I had to scramble to find good stuff.
Okay, I think you phrased it so perfectly because that's exactly what I was thinking. Because that also covers my audio. I thought the audio was fine too. Yeah, you might hate this, but I really liked the title sequence, mainly because, which again, grasping at straws.
Oh yeah, because they just stole it from the original Halloween.
It's just the original, and I liked it. The original did it best. Don't break what ain't broke.
Yeah, they did. I did actually think they used the same pumpkin effect over and over and over.
I loved it.
It was bad.
That's
like,
the point.
They just first of all they just took it from Halloween the original and then just made it a little worse. But it was still fine.
But you know what? Genuinely, I think I would have rather watched 2 straight hours of that pumpkin tearing apart and re-eating itself for 2 hours rather than this movie. So I loved it.
Here's something you might hate. This is the best part of the movie. The fact that the kid dies in the beginning. I have been a strong advocate for child characters dying because it establishes early in the movie that you can't assume that a child character is safe.
So I don't disagree with you. I think it's a good thing they killed off this character because then we would have been like, well, what happened to the kid? And it created tension for this kid's moral issues.
But just imagine if this happened in the beginning of the Halloween remake where, remember there were a couple of kids?
Yeah.
And we just weren't even afraid of them because they would just run away whenever they saw Michael Myers. Imagine if this took place at the start of that movie.
Right.
And then we would be like, oh, this movie is not afraid to kill kids.
Yeah. No, I certainly agree with you. My fear of it was that the babysitter accidentally killed him. It's not so much that he died.
He died pretty graphically, though. So
yeah.
I don't think that's just semantics.
No, I just mean like as a previous babysitter, when I was babysitting, my biggest fear was the child getting very hurt. They never did. We're good.
A good babysitter.
Sometimes. I've had my few issues, but that was my worst nightmare at that time. So like for me, it was very much like I felt that, and I thought the opening was good. The opening with the kid dying, like I don't know if it created tension, but it was a good opening. It set up...
Wasn't what I was expecting.
For sure. It set up something what could have been good, and it just flopped from there. But yes.
The movie was really funny, but like in a way where I'm laughing at the movie. It's not like it was telling good jokes. In an insincere way, I found it funny. Like,
you weren't laughing with the movie, you were laughing at the movie.
There's one scene where the like douchebag band kids want to get Corey to buy them beer, and so they're like, hey, hold on a sec, man. Hold on a sec. He's like, what's up, man? How you doing? He looks at Corey. He's like, just drinking a little milk. And that was delivered really well. I thought that was funny.
I think there was some humor that the actors were like, this is gonna be bad, so let's.
Yeah. And then people would just like accost Laurie on the street for random shit.
I'm sorry, you cannot blame her for a masked killer destruction.
It was kind of wild that people were just like, you did this when she suffered more than anyone.
I understand her mother is now immobile and unable to speak, but like you cannot blame. She's not the person who caused it. I don't know. I really didn't hate the scene where she calls in the fake suicide and then shoots the pumpkin.
That was garbage.
Listen, she knew Corey was coming and she knew he was going to die, so might as well have the police coming. And yeah, I don't know. I didn't hate it.
I did.
There were worse scenes, and that's it with the good.
I'll get into my thoughts in a little bit.
Actually, wait. I also really like the moment where Corey has a stepfather who is very kind and has him work at his mechanic shop. He's the junkyard. That's what the word I was looking for earlier. He owns the junkyard, and he gives Corey his old motorcycle, and that was sweet. And I was really rooting for him.
This movie does a much better job of making likable characters.
Yes.
Every previous entry, they were the most unlikable people alive. But even Corey, I was like, I don't mind following him. The previous movies, I just didn't care if the main characters lived or died.
Yes.
Corey.
All right. Are you done?
But before we get into the bad, I just want to say I just remembered 2 atrocious scenes from the first movie in this trilogy.
Please share.
The first being that she goes to a party with her boyfriend, and her boyfriend immediately starts making out with this girl, and they had at no point established that, like, maybe he didn't have a history, maybe he had a history of lying, or maybe he wasn't always faithful. No, just straight up out of the blue, he was making out with this girl. And she's like, I'm going to call my mom for a ride. So he grabs her phone and throws it into like Jello, I think. And I'm like, what a weird turn for him being suddenly so abusive.
What the fuck?
And then she's walking home with her male friend and he's like, makes a move and then pulls the ultimate like whiny baby rejection. It was like, I just wanted to kiss you. And I'm like, he was actually a likable character until they did that. He was funny. He was clearly nice enough to help walk her home.
Carter, unfortunately, here's the thing. You are a very, very more than decent person.
I would say decent is accurate.
More than decent.
I don't know
We've
if I'd say more than decent.
We've already had this conversation
and I
on the
still
podcast.
Disagree.
Men are trash,
That's
and
true.
in most cases, men only do things because they're interested in the woman and want to get with her.
I will agree that most men are trash, yeah.
So you are one of few who are not trash.
Mm-hmm. It's okay.
So
I'll take it, sure.
So this guy being super cool and funny and then suddenly turning and be like, I just wanted to kiss you, makes total sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen it. I've been there. I've done that. Like,
okay. From a storytelling perspective, it was bad. I'm not saying it's not realistic. It's just unlikable.
All right. That's fair. That's very fair. But it is realistic.
Okay. So let's talk about the bad.
The bad.
So my biggest issue is that they ruined the music. You can go ahead, if you don't believe me, you can go ahead on YouTube and listen to the Halloween theme and the Halloween Ends theme and listen to it. The Halloween theme is a lot more orchestral. It's mostly just the piano, but there's some, I don't know what it is, like heavy string instruments in the background. It's almost like techno in Halloween Ends. It's absurd.
Probably used a synth.
Yeah, it's bad. It's really bad.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah. It was awful.
Before we get into this, did I
Okay.
tell you about the best costume I saw when I was in Salem?
No, it
A
wasn't.
couple weeks ago. It was a guy in a full Michael Myers costume, but he had like a little speaker under his like jumpsuit that was playing the theme, and he walked like he was supposed to. He just walked around Salem deadpan playing the theme song. Let me tell you, can I put that in the spooky, because that was spooky. But it was so good.
Yeah, that is pretty good.
It was, I was like, I tried to take a video to send it to you because it was like, this is pretty great. And then I didn't get my act together for it. But anyways, it was the original theme.
Oh, yeah. So another terrible part of the movie is the recap of the previous movies.
Thank you.
Which was awful and came in the form of Laurie like writing her book. And she's a terrible writer. She isn't
writing a memoir, and but they use her kind of voicing the memoir as the recap, as a voiceover while other things are going. It was awful.
And then that also ties into another thing that I really hated about this movie. Well, this is relevant.
Okay.
The movie itself was so like conceptual at times, where they're like, did the town do this? Referring to a murder. She's like, he took our dreams. Like, Corey's going down a dark path. They kill Michael Myers, and they're like, it's time to start healing. And the worst part, though, is this monologue she talks about with Allison, where she goes, there are two kinds of evil. There's the evil that exists as an external force that threatens the well-being of the tribe. Survival depends on understanding and awareness and fear of physical threat to our daily lives. The other kind of evil lives inside of us, like in sickness or an infection. It's more dangerous because we might not know that we're infected. It's so separated from reality that it's hard to even understand what they're talking about.
Honestly, I did not understand what they were talking about at all. But my issue is the voiceover plus her ideals were unnecessary and took up way too much freaking time.
Also, her book turned out to be like a self-help book.
Yeah, kind of. It was like Stalkers, Murderers, and Suicide.
Yeah,
what was the name of it?
That was like a working title, but it was like how to recover after this instead of telling the story about how she survived. Like,
yeah, oh my god, it was awful. I was really hope that after the first one, it was done. Also, I do have a question for you.
yes.
Did you write down that quote? Did you look it up, or did you just
I copied
memorize
and pasted it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank God. You started singing. I was like, what? How in the world are you pulling this out right now? Because, oof.
So
Anyways,
what didn't you like?
so much. So the plot. Just the whole, not even the plot. The focus of the movie was not on Michael Myers. It was on this kid Corey and
Allison. Like Laurie wasn't even
his relationship with Allison and what they were going through. It was not about Laurie. It was not about Michael. It was about these two, which done differently, framed differently, given their own movie specifically, may have been a little interesting. But in the context of we're here to see death and Michael Myers, what are they doing here? It was bad. It was a crappy relationship. It was not interesting.
She was so into him so fast. Like, she knew him for a day, and he was like, I don't think we can date, and she's full on sobbing.
Yeah, you're right.
Less than, 24 hours after knowing him, at a single date, he's like, I don't think we're good together.
Okay, part of that, she was drinking. The other part of that, she's really into him and she got rejected. She has the right to be sad about it. But the point is, it was stupid. Their whole relationship was just oof.
Yeah.
And I know I've mentioned some of my bad relationships, but I don't think I've ever been on this level of badness.
Where you're dating a serial killer?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although, if some of my previous dates have turned out to be serial killers, I wouldn't be super surprised.
So this movie has just absolutely no nuance whatsoever. Like, there's one scene in which she's looking at the cut on his hand as Corey's, transforming into Michael, and she literally just goes, infected. And I'm like, wow, subtle. Couldn't even put that into a fucking sentence. The kids that we're supposed to not like are the biggest jerks alive. Except for the drinking a little milk, because that line was awesome.
There's nothing to them beyond just this bully mentality, but it's not interesting.
Yeah.
It's kind of just dumb and obnoxious.
It's also, they're clearly what the old people writing this think Gen Z is like.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right.
The one good thing I have to say about the kids is that they used the word bet correctly. I was really not expecting it. He's like,
bet is out of context now. No one says bet anymore.
Yeah, he's like go and go and grab the car. We're gonna hook it up. And the kid goes bet, and I was like, wow, they used it right. I was expecting him to be like, yeah, let me just floss on my way. I was like, holy shit, they actually used slang.
How much you want to bet that was an improvised line by the kid?
Probably was, yeah.
Even though the kids don't say that anymore.
Joe says it, and Joe's my teacher friend, so that's how I rely on slang, is for it to get funneled from him to me.
Yeah, but there's a lag there.
Yeah, and also we're two old people, so.
I was gonna say, yeah, you're right.
So, sorry, just continuing with the no nuance. Yeah. When Corey goes to babysit the dad, or the kid, the dad is playing the piano, and guess what he's playing? Not the Michael Myers theme, the spooky organ music you've heard in every Dracula movie ever. It's like,
okay, to be fair, it is Halloween night.
But my point is, there's just no nuance.
I know.
It's like, what's the spookiest song we can think of? It's that one song that's like,
there's no subtlety. I wish they would have done the Friday the 13th theme, because that would have been at least interesting.
Or maybe the Addams Family.
Yeah.
Or Monster Mash, or just any of the classic Halloween songs.
Yeah,
that
that's
aren't
not
literally
that song.
just trying to create the spookiest song you can think of in a laboratory.
this movie was not clever.
No, it wasn't.
Beyond that drinking milk line.
Yeah. And then lastly, as soon as Corey had his flashback with Michael Myers, I'm like, son of a bitch, because I knew it was going to happen.
Yeah, of course. We all saw that and go, we've seen every movie where this scene is mirroring, and no surprise. So one of the issues that I have with this movie is the lack of tension. Mm-hmm. It tries and fails. And there are some tense moments, but there's no building, there's no, there are tense moments that just fizzle out. Mm-hmm. There's no building of tension, there's no, that's pretty much it.
For what it's worth, I don't think there's any way they could have made it a tense movie, because part of what made Halloween tense, the original, is that he appeared to just be a normal guy, but just was able to take on this unbelievable amount of punishment. And so the tension was when she stabbed him in the throat and he sits up behind her, because we thought that he was dead.
Right.
At this point, we're kind of jaded to Michael Myers being essentially unkillable. So I don't know if there's anything they could have done that would have made me like, did they get him this time?
I don't disagree with you, but at the same time, most of this movie was about Corey. Mm-hmm. So to be honest, I think after that weird eye thing, there could have been some tension. Yeah. I think there were moments where they tried to develop tension and it was just not there. Mm-hmm. Lacked. Bad. No.
So everything about Laurie, I wanted to like Jamie Lee Curtis so bad in this movie. But for like the majority of the movie, she just kind of played Jamie Lee Curtis. She was like, I'm the funny, quirky woman. And I say that as someone who likes that. I like Jamie Lee Curtis. I just want to see Laurie here, not Jamie. And it's not her fault. It's a terrible movie.
I was going to say, I don't think there's anything she specifically could have done, given the dialogue she was given.
She was supposed to be this nerdy and like kooky grandma character, but also badass and cool, and they just didn't mesh well.
Pickling.
Yeah, she's like, sometimes you just gotta show fear your tits, and everyone's like, Grandma, oh my god. And then she's also like, did you really think I'd kill myself? She shoots a pumpkin.
Yeah.
So I can either see her as they just didn't mesh well.
No. I was very disappointed with her. Mm-hmm. Not her acting. I think she acted the role as best she could have. I don't think she was given a lot to work with. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The did you really think I'd kill myself line pissed me off, because I just think not as much as what happened in the first remake, but in the first remake, there's this scene where Michael Myers is trying to like break in, and Judy Greer's like, no, oh my god, I hope I don't get murdered. And he gets in and she's like, ha, it's a trap. And then she escapes and locks him in there. In any movie that does that like all the characters know something except the viewer, is just a glorified heist movie. It's just like,
yeah, that's basically what it was.
At least Corey didn't know either.
Yeah.
But what's bad is when everybody knows but the audience. That's real trash.
Yeah.
This was just not great.
I agree.
The dialogue's terrible. Not even in any good ways. They'd like, kids like, I don't want to play no hide and seek. There's this line where a fence comes down on this girl and she's trapped. And she's like, oh my god, my friend Chris is dead. And one of the teens is trying to help her, and she goes, you're dead too. And then Michael kills him. It's just lame dialogue.
Why wouldn't you say Michael is behind you? Like,
or oh shit, run!
Yeah, like, I don't know.
It's shitty.
Listen, I've said many times that I would not save you if you were trapped somewhere.
You have to say something.
Right. Except if I was trapped and you were free, I'd be like, yo, he's right behind you. Like, leave me, save yourself. Yeah. I'm looking at best option for both of us, whether it's saving myself or yourself. Like, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. So then the absolute peak of the bad dialogue, though, is when Allison comes back in to see Jamie Lee Curtis getting choked out by Michael Myers. Do you know what she says? No! Full stop. That was her line.
I mean, what would you say? You come home, your grandma's just being choked by...
Realistic doesn't mean it's good. And also, the characters were just not...
Carter, you are a want-to-be writer.
Yeah.
What would you say?
I probably wouldn't have ever gotten myself into the scenario. 3 movies deep in a franchise that should have been dead after the first one. Dead's the wrong word. Put to bed after the first one.
This movie didn't need more than the original.
The original was great. Stop making sequels.
They just want to make profits off of something good.
I know.
How much you want to bet?
When Jordan Peele, because it will happen at some point.
He
doesn't have sole discretion on this decision. At some point, there's going to be a Get Out 2 or a Nope 2, and it's going to be the worst day of my life.
How did you read my mind? I was just about to say...
We have 2 brain cells, and every so often they collide.
I was just going to bring up a Jordan Peele sequel. I hope it never happens. The thing with horror specifically, I think it's good on its own. I think it's standalone. Each good horror movie, standalone, is good on its own. It doesn't need more. Mm-hmm. That's part of what makes it good.
I will say...
When it is good.
I did like how Scream did it. It was pretty interesting how the survivors stayed and the killers changed instead of vice versa. But they were done poorly. I just liked the concept.
Okay, fair. But to be fair also, Scream, at its core, is a spoof of horror movies.
Essentially, yeah.
While being a horror movie. So I do think they kind of get a pass. Mm-hmm. They're obviously going to do a sequel, and they're going to want to make it the best they can. Just saying. There's really not much to say beyond, it was dumb. It was so far beyond removed from the original of what made the original good that I halfway, not even halfway through the movie, maybe 10 minutes, I kept looking over at you during the movie and just watching you, your face just was so miserable.
Yeah, I wasn't having fun.
Yeah, me either. It was, and what's disappointing is that there were so many people in the theater.
It was pretty packed.
And you know,
people were wearing Halloween shirts.
Okay, I was one of them. Who cares?
No, but my point is just we didn't get the people who were bored on a Thursday night. These were Halloween fans.
Yeah. I saw on Facebook today that someone was like, "This is so good, I'm gonna watch it again," and I was like, "Why? What is your damage?"
I mean, I've told you the only person whose opinion I care about less than a film critic is a non-film critic.
So you don't care about our opinion at all?
No, I think less of viewers of this podcast who are interested in what we have to say.
Okay.
This is essentially... wait
a minute.
This is my junkyard for thoughts about movies, is where I throw it away so I don't have to have them anymore.
Oh, that's fair. I do the same. But you just insulted our viewers. We're gonna...
I love my viewers. I'm teasing them.
Okay, all right. That's fair.
So...
this movie just...
The fact that Michael Myers now looks super old and burned is terrible. It goes against the concept of the movie, which is he was supposed to look... There's a scene in the movie where, Jamie Lee Curtis, in the original, where Jamie Lee Curtis wrestles off his mask, and he drops what he is doing to put it back on, like he's this horrible burned guy, but you see his face, and he is so plain looking.
Yeah.
He is, just white guy, brown hair... eyes, nose, absolutely no facial features. He's clean shaven.
He looks normal.
Yes. He looks like
that's the point.
Anybody you would pass on the street. And that was what was spooky about it, is he's obsessing over this mask and stuff, but it doesn't do anything. It's just his cover.
It hides his identity, and that's it.
Well, I don't think that was important to him.
No.
Just from the lore.
You're right.
But
that is a good point.
And so now the fact that he's all scarred and burned makes him less interesting to me.
Yeah. Honestly, he's been less interesting since remake number 1.
Yes.
I was just so bored during this movie, to be honest. A lot of it was bad.
So I have a question for you to prove a point. You don't know very much about guns, do you?
No.
Okay, perfect. So this movie doesn't seem to really get how guns work. Let me ask you something.
Sure.
Do you know what a rifle is?
Yeah.
Okay, you know what a pistol is.
Yeah.
Which would you rather, or do you have you know what a shotgun is?
What's the difference between a pistol and a shotgun?
Okay, a shotgun is a gun that it can fire any number of rounds, but typically it fires a lot of pellets.
Okay.
So it has a wider range. Accuracy is less important. It also typically has a lot more power.
Yep.
They create sawed-off shotguns where they saw off part of the barrel, and it's an even wider spread.
Okay.
Which is meant for more close range things. So I'm not even going to talk about the shotgun. What do you think is better, pistol or rifle, for long distance?
Rifle.
Yeah. And you don't know very much about guns, just kind of intuitively,
you didn't even have it to get into that conversation explaining what that is. You could have just said what
Yeah, it's like, so they would, every time in the movie, this guy's like, this guy's a gun cabinet, and he pulls out a fucking revolver, which has exactly 6 shots.
I do know what a revolver is.
And a rifle, and he looks at the kid he says, "Stay inside, I'm going out there," and he hands the kid the fucking rifle. I'm like, I feel like you want that outside. And then there was a scene in the remake, the first remake. Did they just call that Halloween? Or was it like Halloween Resurrection or something?
I don't know.
All right. Well, anyway,
I'll look it up.
There's this scene where Laurie is supposed to be like having practice with guns her whole life, and she sees Michael Myers on her lawn, and so she grabs a pistol and starts shooting at him. And then when he gets closer, she runs in and switches out the pistol for a rifle so she can go room to room. Physically, it is harder to move a rifle around like that. There's no room indoors. It's so stupid, and you understand just intuitively how dumb it is. I'm not even a gun expert. It's just bigger guns are generally good for further distance. Smaller guns are good for when you need to move your arm around a lot more. So that's one of my biggest issues with this whole franchise is they not only seem to not understand guns, they seem to have active contempt for just knowing anything about them, even conceptually.
Yeah.
The radio sucked.
Oh my god. I don't understand why that was a plot point.
I understood that they were trying to establish it, but it didn't build up to anything.
No. Like I said, there was no tension. They just, like, the radio was going and then they killed him. I understand wanting to kill the radio guy. He was kind of a douche, but like...
For those of you who don't know, the movie literally opened with like, "This is 92.45! The dick smacker! This is the kid talking, and I'm about to play you the best song you've ever heard! I'm waking up!" And it starts playing Imagine Dragons or some shit. It was just so over the top. Just to really capture how obnoxious it was.
It was really obnoxious. We haven't even gotten to... We were like on the studio title screen. We weren't even in the movie yet, and it was like playing this radio guy, and I was like, ugh.
And it was very clear. I was like, oh, okay, cool. Chekhov's gun. The radio's gonna play a role in the movie.
Yeah.
I wish they were a little more subtle about it.
Yeah.
The radio didn't play a role in the movies. They just went there once and then killed the guy.
Yeah. Their lack of nuance was non-existent. God.
There's a scene where Allison is talking to Corey, and she goes, "Yeah, my car's rattling." And he goes, "Oh, sounds like the muffler's loose." And I'm like, fucking bullshit. There's a million noises your car makes, and a rattle describes all of them.
I was so annoyed by that, because I was like, how the frick do you know? You haven't even looked at the car.
Yeah.
You don't even know what kind of rattle it's making.
Yeah.
Like, that's such a BS, like, mansplaining garbage thing to be like, oh, it's this thing. It's like...
Which is,
if it was me, I'd be like, you haven't even looked at my car.
Which is funny because it's so obvious what it is, but not audibly. Just if you look at it, you're like, oh, the radio or the muffler's banging against the ground.
Yeah.
I could see that, and I know nothing about cars. But he's like, oh, a rattle. And I'm like, dude.
Piss me off.
There's no way you know what is rattling.
No.
Everything in a car rattles.
I have rattling in my car right now.
Yeah.
I know for a fact.
And it's not even running.
Anyways. God, Yeah, keep going.
All right.
I get. I finished all of my things, but like,
Okay.
I will hop onto yours and.
Just kind of bad effects in general. I don't have a ton to elaborate on. It was just very clearly meh.
Yeah, I wouldn't say they were awful, but they weren't good.
Yeah. And then lastly, one of my biggest issues was the misunderstanding where Allison walks in and thinks that Laurie killed her boyfriend. Because that was the most, like, Shakespearean comedy. Like, oh no, let me grab the knife to pull it out. And then her daughter walks in, she's like, it's not what you think.
Listen, I don't understand why she pulled the knife out of his neck.
I don't know. People do stupid stuff.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess it's more like, the panic response. What are you gonna do?
I could see myself panicking and pulling a knife out of someone's neck, trying to save them. Like, what are you supposed to do? Leave it there?
Yeah.
Yeah, but like, you understand what I'm saying, though, is
True.
Instinctively that feels like the wrong thing.
I understand that, but I know for a fact if someone is stabbed, you leave that in there. No matter what. But also, like, it puts blood on her hands. If she did not grab the knife and be like, listen, there's no blood on me, like, he did this to himself.
For what it's worth, she did shoot him, though. So, she can't be like, see, the knife was his fingerprints. I don't know. I don't know where you got those bullets. I shot a pumpkin.
That is a good point. Also, wait, on the topic of her shooting she shoots the wall purposely 3 times.
To empty the gun, I assume, but there's no clear purpose for that either.
It was so dumb.
It was really dumb.
In my mind, you're right, it was to empty the gun, but when I was watching it, I was like, is she trying to fake a gunfight? My answer is still yes.
With one gun, and also there's going to be 6 bullets with her 6-bullet gun.
Free! Also shot straight in a line against the wall. Like, no one will believe that.
Are you ready to talk about the spooky?
Yeah, I guess I'm done with the bad.
The spooky! Okay, so my spookiest thing was when he kills the radio guy, he like grabs his tongue and chops it off, and that was dumb. But the tongue landed on the record that was playing for the radio, and every time the thing ran over it, it would like skip. That was a cool effect.
It skipped the record, and also the tongue flapped around.
Yeah, that was. I thought that was bad effects, but I thought it was a cool idea, especially because then it cut to Allison driving, listening to the song, and she could hear it because it was broadcasting.
I loved it.
That was cool.
I didn't think the effect was bad.
I did. It would like flip over. It was dumb.
I thought it was funny in a good way.
This is not the funny part. You shouldn't have the funny part in what's described as like the scary part.
Okay, you are correct, and I agree with you, but I enjoyed it. In reality, what would have happened is that it would have hit the tongue and it just would have stopped spinning.
Yeah, it would have dragged it along until it stopped.
Yeah, exactly. But I do like the continuity of her listening to the radio station and then it, referencing the skipping.
I will say I did work in a radio station, and that is accurate. Is you can put a record on and broadcast it directly without picking up ambient sound.
Interesting. I also worked in a radio station, but all of our music was digital. We didn't have any records or anything. We had CDs.
Do you know the front bottoms?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't like them.
When I worked at a radio station, they were like trying to show us how to work. Or they were quizzing us really on how to work the CDs. And he goes, why don't you just pick any CD, anything you want, and just put it on, just to prove that you know how. And so my friend goes, and she's flipping through, and she's like, oh, I know these guys. And she puts them on. And he goes, good, yep, there you go. And they start playing Rhode Island by the Front Bottoms. And it is such a bad song that I laugh at her. And she like looks and gives me a look. And I was like, you put on a joke song, right? This was intentionally the worst song you could think of. It's funny, right? She's like, no, it's real music. And I was like, what? There's a line that's like, I'm trying to work up the courage to kiss the bottom half of her face.
Ew. Yeah, no, I'm not a big fan of the Front Bottoms. I know who they are. Did you work at your college radio too?
No. I couldn't handle the pressure of that high-paced lifestyle. I got trained and then I stopped.
Oh, I had a show for a single semester and then I stopped showing up.
Okay.
It was like a women empowerment. The show was called That's What She Said.
That's pretty good, actually.
I liked it. Someone was like, "Oh, someone's gonna find that offensive." I was like, "No, people like The Office. They'll think it's funny, and also we'll talk about women's issues." Okay, It was great. Good time.
So, what did you find spooky?
The kid dying. Mainly the babysitter being trapped in the attic, making his way off, accidentally shoving the kid off the railing. The kid dying. Not the scene.
He was a bit of a brat.
Yeah, the leading up to the kid dying, spooky. Again, I've already said it. It was my worst nightmare for a very long time when I was actively babysitting. Like, you know. So to me, that was spooky. The rest of the movie, no, nothing.
Another scene I thought was particularly spooky was Margot, one of the kids. Like, one of the only ones mentioned by name. When they're all running in the junkyard, she's on the other side of a chain link fence that gets run over by a car. And perhaps realistically, I don't know the actual science, but it makes sense to me, it didn't kill her. Because it was like the weight was on the fence, it was distributed, so she was just pinned under the fence in the mud.
That made complete sense.
That was spooky to me, is her trapped while the killer's going around.
That is very, okay,
It plays off claustrophobia and the fear.
Yeah.
There's barbed wire on it. I thought that was spooky.
That is a very good point. I didn't think much too into that scene, but you're right. That is, now I've got chills up my back. That is very spooky.
Do you have anything else you found spooky?
That's it.
Okay, so I have a new segment that I call Minor Notes. These are just thoughts I had during the movie that were neither good nor bad nor spooky, just kind of thoughts that I think you should know about.
All right, tell them to me.
Number one, Allison's ex-boyfriend Doug is like a million years older than her. And funny enough, neither of them are famous enough to have their birthdays on their Wikipedia page.
You're joking.
So I can't confirm how much older he is. But he looks way older. He looks like he's in his 40s, and I know she's 28. That I managed to track down.
He looks like he's probably 48. I want to say he's that much older than her.
Because he's got like a dad bod too.
But he also is like, he looks old.
Yeah.
Like, maybe not 48. That's a bit of an exaggeration. But he does look at least 10 years older, if not more than her. Like,
yeah, I was uncomfortable with him flirting with her because I just naturally assumed they must have some kind of like uncle-niece kind of relationship where he looks out for her. I was really uncomfortable where he was like, "Hey, beautiful."
Yeah, he pulls her over and is flirting with you. And you're like, "Oh," and she just kind of is like, "Oh, whatever." And then you find out they dated, and it was like, "Oh, really?" Mm-hmm.
So
poor casting.
Couple more thoughts.
Let's keep going.
The doctor looked spooky like Ted Kennedy.
Yeah.
The film also has the kid from the original, not the original, from the remake who goes, "Oh shit!" He was in that march.
Was he? I didn't even see him.
There's a scene in which Allison and Corey go upstairs to have sex while in the same house as her grandmother.
She wasn't home yet.
She was just sitting outside watching them go up the stairs.
Okay, she watched them go up the stairs.
Yeah, grandma's house is not sexy, okay?
That's also her house. She lives there too.
Also, I purged Halloween Kills from my mind after seeing it.
Me too.
So I didn't remember Judy Greer's character dying.
Oh.
And I saw the red-headed woman get stabbed, the red-headed nurse get stabbed. And I was like, wow, they spoiled it, that she died. That's wild.
She died.
And then in the recap, they said, like, my daughter died. And I'm like, wait a minute, what? So I'm forced to conclude that I think all redheaded women look fairly similar. I think it's possible I might have some mild face blindness. I'm like, yeah, all brunette women look the same. All redheaded women look the same. I already know I have trouble telling blonde women apart. I think I might be a little face blind.
This makes a lot of sense when you're like, she looks like Charlotte from Sex and the City.
She does.
She looks something like her.
She looks just like her. Anyway, some overall thoughts.
And yet the actress that actually does look like her, like, no.
What actress?
Oh my god, the one she was in Ouija, which you didn't watch.
Okay.
But she was in a different movie we covered, and I can't remember it. But you were like, she doesn't look like her.
Okay. I can only assume I'll keep my opinion then. So some overall thoughts on the movie. It was kind of nonsensical. It barely followed characters. And there were no clear themes or character arcs.
No.
It was just all around bad.
Yeah.
I will say it did have a competent production value. I didn't feel like I was served trash on a plate and told it was a hamburger. I just feel like I got a bad hamburger.
That's a fair assessment.
Yeah.
You stopped doing comparisons.
Yeah, I mean, I just couldn't think of funny. If people loved them, maybe I'll go back, but I
thought that was a good one, though.
Yeah. I just couldn't think of any funny or fun ones.
You wrote down a ton of them.
And I burned through them.
You burned through that many?
We're like 20 weeks into this. We've gone through a lot.
I thought you wrote down like more than 20, so... You stopped doing them a while ago.
Yeah. So the Joseph DeStasio memorial line highlight was, "Did you really think I'd kill myself?" Which is such a silly line, isn't it?
So dumb.
Did you really think I'd kill myself?
Listen, I didn't like that line, but I liked her calling in the suicide and shooting the pumpkin. Mainly just shooting the pumpkin because I really want to shoot a pumpkin. Mm-hmm. But the line is stupid.
Yeah. So why don't you give your rating first?
Give it a 3. 3 too many remakes.
That's good. I gave it a 3, as in 3 pumpkicides. The movie is just... It's a 3, but it is a 3 on the Hollywood movie scale of like... It was a bad movie that we watched, but it wasn't like made by people who had no fucking clue how to make a movie.
Yeah.
It had acceptable production value.
I considered giving it a worse rating, but I did come up with at least 6 things for the good. Mm-hmm. So...
Oh my god, I forgot to tell you this.
What?
Wow, Joe and I, we went to Vermont for a weekend, me and a group of friends. And
yeah, not we as in me and Carter.
Right,
Carter went to Vermont with his friends from college.
Yes, and Joe and I carpooled. And at one point on the way home, my mom called me. Because, we had bad reception all weekend. I hadn't been able to talk to her. So I'm like, "Hey, Mom, how's it going?" She's like, "Oh, great. I just caught up on Horse Sucks." I'm like, "That's great. Just a heads up, Mom. I'm driving. You're on speakerphone. And Joe's in the car with me." And she's like, "Joe, like, from Horse Sucks, Joe?" And I'm like, "Yeah, actually. Funny enough. He was in Scream." And it gets better. So... The next day I have dinner with her because I'm back in town, and she goes, "It's a really good thing you said that, because actually one of my notes was that I loved it except for when Joe was on it."
What's funny is that we're sharing this on the podcast, and Joe is hopefully gonna listen. Poor Joe.
It was reasonable. It wasn't like she didn't find him funny or anything. It's just she just disagreed with how he swore.
Oh, okay.
It's because she doesn't mind when I swear because she thinks I use it to emphasize points well.
Versus Joe just
Joe
kind of
used it
swears
as a
to
filler
swear.
word, and I feel like that's reasonable.
I don't disagree with her.
And I don't think he's wrong for doing that. I can just see why people might take them out of it.
Yeah, exactly.
But isn't that funny that like she was like, "Yeah, this Joe kid sucks." Because she hasn't even gotten to the part where we start talking about the Joe DeStasio memorial line.
Wait, she's not caught up. She's just listened to a few episodes.
She's listening to it chronologically.
I love her for that.
Yeah.
I think my dad is a full listener, listens every single week an episode comes out, is fully caught up.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm like, "Don't listen to this episode." He still listens to it, but...
Yeah. Speaking of our listeners, shout out to our listeners in Germany and South Africa.
Yes. What's up, guys?
Yeah, don't know how you guys found us, but
not bad. Share it. Tell your friends.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, the rest of our listeners, thanks for listening.
Yeah. Oh man, yeah. We have a bunch of people who are listening that have never met us, which I think is wild.
It's so strange. We have shout out to our one Instagram follower who talks to me all the time. Yeah. What's up, man? I don't actually know your real name, and I want to keep it that way, but I really appreciate you, and I hope you enjoy this episode because you said you couldn't wait for it. Did I tell you I got a message from this listener that comments on all of our posts?
No, what?
This listener, he sent me a message that he watched Halloween Kills, same day we did, and he like put it on his story that he gave it a 3 out of 10. And he was like, I can't wait to hear what you guys think of this. And I was like,
that's well, because I never even heard about that until just now. So my 3 out of 10 was entirely not influenced by him.
I chose the 3 out of 10 pre-looking at this.
Yeah, that's funny. We all agreed. That's funny.
I think it's a solid rating.
Yeah. So what are we watching next week?
What are we watching? Isn't it Hellraiser?
Yeah. Ooh, Hellraiser. Okay.
The new Hellraiser movie.
You can find this one on Hulu.
This is a full circle moment for us because we covered the original Hellraiser.
It was one of our first movies.
It was the second one specifically, I think, or is it?
No,
third?
it wasn't. It was
third or fourth.
It's 5. It doesn't matter. It's not important.
It's important to me.
But anyway, Hellraiser.
It's a full circle moment still.
Sure. Yeah. Hellraiser is on Hulu.
Hellraiser 2022.
Yes, that's the important one.
We will be doing some of our favorite oldies / goodies / are they reallys. Once horror isn't being released every single week. So probably not until like December when things die down. But we are focusing on newer movies because for the most part, it seems like that's what people want to hear.
Yep.
But we still also appreciate your recommendations and requests. But if you have requested anything recently and we haven't covered it, send me a reminder on our Instagram and I'll make sure we expedite it a little bit.
Also, don't expect it in October.
Yeah.
That's when they're releasing all the movies ever.
Right.
So we are honestly kind of overwhelmed right now. We have one in the chamber that's not even going to air until November.
We
right?
have 2 in the chamber.
Jesus.
Because we have Cabin in the Woods and Ouija.
Did you finish editing Ouija?
No, I haven't. But
Okay.
It's still technically in the chamber.
You have plenty of time, but why don't you do that? Yeah.
Thanks, Carter. Thanks for...
Why don't you do that, Ashley, right now?
Fine, I will. I'm
right.
leaving. All right. Well, anyways, we've talked your ear off enough.
Yeah.
Thank you all for listening. If you liked what you heard, please make sure to rate and review and subscribe to our little show. You can also find us on Instagram and soon, very soon, hopefully soon, at horrorsex.com.
Fingers crossed.
I got stuff to tell you about that. And also feel free to send me a message over Instagram, or you can email us at horrorsexpodcast@gmail.com. Anyways, thank you for listening. We really appreciate it. And
stay spooky.
Horror Sucks is brought to you by Wild Thing Media. Editing is done by Carter Rhodes, and music and production is done by Ashley Atkins. Thank you so much.